Welcome to the Observe Day podcast, the show where we celebrate the days that matter. From holidays to meaningful observances, we bring you inspiring conversations, stories, and ideas to make each day count. Whether it's raising awareness, learning something new, or simply sparking joy, this is your space to explore the calendar in a whole new way. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to share today's observance with you. Let's dive in. September is recognized as Pain Awareness Month, a time dedicated to shedding light on the realities of living with pain, whether physical, emotional, or psychological, and the importance of compassion, resilience, and support. On today's episode of the Observe Day podcast, we're honored to welcome Michael Ostrolenk, a human resilience and conscious relationship coach who has spent decades at the intersection of health optimization, personal development, and human performance. Michael's journey began as a child discovering meditation and biofeedback, and over the years, he has trained in somatic psychology, martial arts, tactical training, and integrative health. His work with organizations like CA Field's Unbeatable Mind Academy, Esperanzo, and the Itigra Institute has helped countless people cultivate resilience, develop self-mastery, and build deeper, more conscious connection. As we mark Pain Awareness Month, we'll explore how resilience, mindset, and emotional intelligence can help shape the way we relate to pain, not just as something to be endured, but as a signal for growth, transformation, and human potential. Welcome to the podcast, Michael.
Thank you. Appreciate having me on.
Yeah, Michael, you've been on this path of resilience and human optimization since you were a child. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got started?
Yeah, certainly. So I had a funny experience when I was 9 years old. That kind of sets the stage for this whole thing. I had some health and learning challenges as a kid. And one of the manifestations of that is I was a hair puller. I pulled out my hair. And it was a way for me to deal with the stress, but it's considered an obsessive compulsive disorder. And at age 9, my mom took me to see a psychiatrist, which is kind of normal. But this is 1979, and psychiatrists back then and today mostly just prescribe drugs. And for many people, that's an okay thing. But for some reason, at the end of our 50-minute session, I was 9 years old. Keep this in mind. I looked at him. I turned to my mom. And I said, he's fat, he smokes, he can't help himself. How's he going to help me? And I walked out the room. Now, I'm very fortunate that my mom supported, I mean, she probably thought that was really obnoxious for a 9-year-old, but she supported me in that she didn't make me go back and get on the medications that he would put me on. What she did is she helped me find a therapist, a psychotherapist, not a psychiatrist, named Mrs. Pat Lawson. And Mrs. Lawson taught me how to use biofeedback machines. And this is 1979, so it wasn't all high tech like it is today, but it was pretty cool for a 9-year-old. She taught me meditation. She taught me guided imagery. And I was really fortunate. She got me introduced to the martial arts, and I've been a student of them ever since. That was the beginning of my explorations of kind of like what you might call self-mastery, self-regulation, inner work.
When you shared the story, what I could think of is a scene in the movie series called Young Sheldon, and I think there's a point where the guy is very smart. Just for context, he's a very smart science kid. So he went to see the doctor, and the doctor smoked. The doctor was fat, and all those things you just mentioned. And the kid was like, one of the things the kid was like, it's the same thing you said. It was like, look at him, he's not healthy. How do I expect me to take advice on him? And I was like, wow, this thing was actually based off real life.
Yeah, so I have not seen that movie, but it's pretty obnoxious for a 9-year-old. But I'm really fortunate, like I said, that my mom supported me and found me another therapist. For any one person, maybe the medication might be useful and helpful, but literally by learning to do self-management of my my nervous system and change my mindset, that set me off on a whole different path in life than I would imagine if the doctor put me on drugs to deal just with the OCD.
Yeah, I'm curious, over the years, how has your relationship with pain, both physical, emotional, evolved?
Yeah. So, I did have a lot of pain. I would say emotional pain. The emotional pain, well, physical pain actually, the beginning I was around 5 years old. I was in the hospital for about a month. I had an autoimmune disorder. We know a lot more about them today than we did in 1975. But, it was a scary time. I had a lot of procedures done. I had a spinal tap. I had a lot of shots. I had a lot of IVs, so there was actually a lot of physical discomfort and pain. But, eventually got dealt with medically and I was released and, led a normal life. But I would say it's more the emotional pain that generated. I was eventually diagnosed with learning disabilities when I was in school in the 80s. And what occurred for me prior to the diagnosis was I was really smart in some subjects and I didn't do well in others. So like, maybe in second grade, I was reading at a sixth grade level or something along those lines. But other things I was having a real hard time with. And my teachers would call me lazy because I was really smart. And I must be really lazy if I'm not able to do everything really well. I wasn't lazy. I just would have had a problem processing whatever she was, she was teaching me at the time in that particular class. But to have a constantly be told you're lazy, you're lazy, you're lazy. It's all something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with you. You're just lazy. You need to try harder. And it causes a lot of frustration. That's what eventually partially led to the hair pulling, because that was my way of dealing with my own internal frustrations and emotional stress. You can say emotional pain. Now, fortunately, with Mrs. Lawson, all the inner practices that she taught, the biofeedback, the guided imagery, the meditation, the martial arts, I learned how to manage internal states. So the emotional pain, I was able to manage it, not let it overtake me.
Yeah.
And I'd have to act out hair pulling. And then, being diagnosed with the learning disability also reduced the suffering too, because I had an explanation for why I was having a hard time in school. And it wasn't because I was lazy.
Oh, oh, before we go any further, a lot of persons they think of pain as only physical, but your work spans both mental, emotional, and even relational pain. How do you define pain in a broader human context?
Wow, man, that's a wonderful question. Well, let me start with emotional pain. The way I'm trained, my postgraduate work is in somatic or body psychology. So one of the frameworks I use is the body, how we actually live inside of our body. And one of the other frameworks I keep in my mind is like Chinese medicine. You have the natural flows of energy through the meridians in the system, and you want to keep that as healthy as possible so the energy flows. That's one framework. Another framework you might consider is like Rolfing, which is a type of body work where you want to have the whole fascia muscular system aligned with gravity, and so you can move more freely. Those are just kind of two frameworks. And the reason I bring those two up, because when I think about emotional pain or mental pain, you can use either one of those frameworks and say like there's a disruption in the natural flow of energies in a system. Something is blocking. So like, for instance, when I work with my clients and a client might be feeling emotional pain, I would want to know from them, let's just say they're angry, they're frustrated about something. There's, a lot of emotional angst inside of them. I would want to know from them, not the concept that they want to share. I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I have a mental pain or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I want to know how they experience it in their body. What happens to their breath? What happens to their posture? What happens to their muscle tone? What happens to the flows of energy in their system? What kind of thoughts arrive in their mind? What kind of imagery? Is there any smells or sounds? Like the whole gestalt of what happens in the body. And I'll say for most people, because what we do when we feel any kind of pain is we contract, because it's kind of a scary thing. And we contract, and when we contract, literally physically, our fascia get tight, our muscles get tight, we hold our breath. We don't allow the full flow of the energy of the emotion to go through the body. So it almost gets locked into the human system because we hold our breath and we contract against it. And that to me is kind of...
Before we dive deeper, I'd love to invite you to join the Observe Day newsletter. Every week, I send you highlights of upcoming observances, creative ways to celebrate, and behind-the-scenes extras from the shows. It's the perfect way to stay inspired and never miss a meaningful moment. Sign up today at observeday.com/join. That is observeday.com/join. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
One way to think about emotional or mental pain is like it's the non-free flowing of a particular emotion through the system. Because what I find is most people, and I can't speak for every person because I've never worked with every person, but if you actually allow the free flow of the emotions in the system, you don't contract against it. You actually feel it fully. You allow it to emerge in the whole human system. It can be overwhelming. It can be scary. It can make you want to contract against it and repress it. But if you actually allow it to emerge, in many, if not most cases, but I can't speak for all cases, the intensity of it starts diminishing. It's when we don't allow the full feeling and expression of an emotion where the intensity begins to increase over time. increase over time,
Yeah.
increase over time. And what will happen is one or two things. There could be a third thing, but it comes out sideways as passive aggressive behavior. I'm feeling uncomfortable inside myself and I act out in certain ways, not directly, sideways, passive aggressive, or it can come out as illness, chronic illness over time. The emotional and mental pain undigested can then turn into physical pain as one example, because you're actually affecting the organ systems and other systems in the human body.
Wow. Wow. That's such a detailed breakdown of pain. Thank you, Micah. One of the words that is thrown that's kind of goes along with the word pain, right? Is resilience. In conversations where people have having a conversation about pain, oftentimes the word resilience it pops up naturally. And before I ask you what resilience is, I would love to know what resilience is not, right? Because I feel like sometimes people use the word resilience out of context. They use it wrongly for what it is not.
Yeah, so I look at resilience in three different ways. Can I break down each one of them? Is that
Please do.
okay? Okay. So, and this goes really well with your question you asked about pain, mental and emotional pain. So one way I think about resilience is your ability to sit in the uncomfortableness that occurs in your physical body. So let's just say for a moment, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling shame, whatever the feeling is going inside of me. Now, in our culture here in the United States, and I'm sure everywhere else, we have a lot of things we can do to distract ourselves from what's happening inside myself.
Yeah.
Just alcohol, porn, people can work extra long periods of time because they don't want to deal with what's happening inside themselves. They work out too much. I already said the drugs and alcohol, social media. They get lost in YouTube or Netflix, whatever the thing is. You can easily find distractions from what's happening inside ourselves and even what's happening between you and another human being. Let's say so you have a conflict with
Yeah.
your partner and you're like, oh, I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to distract myself. Resilience to me is recognizing that human beings seek distraction because we don't want to feel what's going on or experience our own thoughts, what's going on in our lives or in our relationship.
Yeah.
One way to think about resilience is the ability to increase the amount of time one sits in the uncomfortableness of their own experience. So if I sit there for like 10 minutes, I'm getting really frustrated, or maybe I'm crying because I'm sad or I'm feeling guilty or whatever it is. And then I go seek distraction because I don't want to have to feel this and think about it. Okay. That's my base level. And if I'm working with you, I would say you can become more resilient by sitting with it for 15 minutes, sitting it for 20 minutes, sitting with it for 30 minutes. And eventually you get to the point where you have the capability inside yourself to sit with whatever it is as long as it needs to process it and digest it and actually deal with it. So the resilience is increasing the capacity to sit with whatever is arising in terms of emotions and thoughts inside your human system. That's one way I think about resilience. Let me see if you have any questions
Oh,
on that.
okay, that's one way, is the ability to sit with it. Now,
Yeah.
I want you to clarify the difference between sitting with the pain versus ignoring the pain. That is, even though I feel the pain, I am trying to do as if there is no pain. Is that the same thing?
So make sure I understand your question correctly. If one is trying to repress or ignore and not deal with their pain,
Yeah.
like they pretend like it's not there,
Yeah.
and they'll seek distractions. My suggestion is, and what I believe resilience is that's not healthy.
Mm.
Now, there might be moments that actually you might want to do that, and I'll give you a great example,
Okay.
if that's okay. So I had a client whose wife died unexpectedly. She died, and they were both in the medical field. And within a few weeks period of time, he had to take care of the kids, of course. He had to take care of the funeral, which is, a big thing. So you have to have all the family and
Yeah.
friends coming in town. He had to take care of the medical practices that she was a partner in his practice. So he
Yeah.
had to figure all that stuff out. So for the first month, at least, he was overwhelmed with things he had to do. And what he said to me is, I didn't have time to really feel and process the grief of losing my love of my life, my wife. And I understood that. And that made sense to me for him because he had so many other things he needed to do. Because if he just fell into his grief and was unable to get out of the bed, He can't take care of his kids. He couldn't take care of the funeral. He couldn't take care of the business. But what he did is, all those things were eventually taken care of as best as he could. He got help, which is really important. But then he started processing the feelings, the grief. So there might be times in one's life, very short periods of time, that it might be necessary to put it aside to be able to do something else. But ultimately, I think the biggest thing is just you need to be able to feel it, process it, digest it, and then deal with it. What does that mean? Depending on what the issue is, the feelings that are emerged, there might be actions to take, not just to feel it.
Yeah, before I asked this question, you just responded to you talked about the first form of resilience, and you were about uh, talking about the remaining two forms of resilience. Could you proceed?
I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. You asked me for the other two
Oh
definitions
yeah,
of resilience.
yeah. When you finished
Okay,
explaining the
good.
first one, you were like, "Oh, do you have any questions?" And yeah,
Okay, perfect. Good. I apologize. I just had a
no,
little
no
bit of a
problem, no
hard time
problem.
hearing
Yeah,
you. Okay. So, and even before I go to the second and third one, let me just stick with the first one first. One of the things I also work with my clients on, besides increasing one's capacity to feel for longer periods of time until you can completely feel and digest whatever it is and deal with it, part of that too is optimizing the physical human system. Because if you feel like crap because you're not sleeping well, you're not eating well, you're not exercising, you don't deal with your stress well, it's really hard to process anything because you just feel like you're not
yeah,
feeling good. So I also work with people to optimize their physical system. Let's dial in your sleep. Let's dial in your diet and nutrition based on your bio-individuality. How about fitness and movement practices? Let's learn how to deal with stress appropriately and live within the 24-hour day-night cycle, circadian biology. Because if you start dialing those things in, you feel better. You have more cognitive capacity. Your energy is a little bit better. You're much more capable of dealing with whatever the emotional stuff, the mental stuff that might be emerging in your system. So I also let's optimize the system. Besides increasing the capacity to feel for longer periods of time until you finish the process. That's the first one. You asked about the other two. The second one is interpersonal. No man's an island. Like we are social beings. Now, some people are more introverted and further their time alone without other people. Understand, I can't speak for every human being, but generally we're social beings. And what I encourage people to do is not just about you becoming more resilient inside yourself, which is important psychologically, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. It's also interpersonally more resilient, meaning do you have the type of relationships which can help you and you help others inside their own lives
yeah.
to deal with the challenges life throws your way. And I do a lot of work with couples. And one of the things I talk about is a concept I call me to we. A lot of couples that come to me, they're fighting. And it's like me. Like I'm right and I'm going to prove you wrong. And no, I'm right. I'm going to prove you wrong. And they fight back and forth. They do tit for tat. That's not very resilient. It's very hyper individualized. It's very defensive. It's not very loving. It's not very empathetic. So what I encourage people to do is go from me against me to we. It's like us two coming together, facing the problem. That's a much more resilient approach because you have double the power, you double the heart,
Yeah.
double the mind, double the spirit coming together to deal with whatever the challenges are. That makes both people independent of each other, but also as a couple, if they're talking about relationships, romantic relationships, much more resilient to life conditions. They'd be less likely to be thrown off by whatever, financial,
Yeah.
health, familiar, whatever challenge, geopolitical, cultural, technological, whatever challenges there are in the world. Not to say there are not going to be challenges, but you're much more strong if you're in it together,
Yeah.
facing the challenges and the problems and stuff. So that's the second piece is interpersonal relationship resilience.
Okay. Okay. And what?
Can I go to the third one?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, go. So I co-lead a men's group with JC Glick. He's a former Army Ranger. And we talk a lot about the third pillar of resilience. And third pillar is and it's a men's group. So I'm going to speak to men, but this is for men and women, but I'll just speak for men in this case. The third pillar is the second one is a relationship with your primary partner, your wife or your husband. Cool. The third one is, are you resilient inside your community? Meaning, can you step up and take a leadership role, which could be your family, it could be in your neighborhood, it could be in your country, it could be the whole human species. I mean, it depends what the situation is,
Yeah.
calling you forward to take a leadership role. I mean, it doesn't have to be like save the whole world. I mean, it could be, but like, are you strong enough inside that you're capable of staying calm, cool, and centered? You have the inner capacities to help your community, whatever your community size it might be, the scale is different, deal with whatever challenges that it faces without falling apart. That to me and us in this men's group is really, really important. It's a sign of resilience because we face so many challenges in our world today, some very local and some very national and some very global. And we need more and more people who have the heart, loving, caring, compassion, complexity of thinking, a strong physical body, good values and principles that they're able to go and deal with the challenges we face.
Yeah.
That's also resilience in my mind.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for breaking it down. I love the
Yeah.
the part where you previously that's the second one you said, when we come together we're more equipped because we have more resources to face whatever comes our way versus just alone. Um if we're talking about pain awareness, for someone listening today that is currently in deep physical and emotional pain, what's the first step you recommend they take?
So as I said, kind of with the second
Yeah.
pillar of resilience, no man's an island, but I don't want to limit to men. No human's an island. Get help. And maybe one needs professional help. Cool. A therapist, a coach, a religious figure inside your life that's meaningful to you. Or, maybe you go to your spouse or a family member, but it can be really important to have someone in your life that you feel comfortable enough to share as honestly and openly about whatever's going on with you. So you get it out in, like verbally to another human being. I'd say that's really important. You don't have to do it alone. We can find at least one other person to hold our hand as we go through these challenges.
Yeah. Well, while you were answering some of the questions, one of the things you mentioned is that you help people go through and deal with issues like this relating to pain. Where can we learn more about the work you do and also connect with you?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Our website, Michael, Michael, the letter D, D as in David, but just the letter D, Ostrolenk, Ostrolenk.com. And it has all about my work with individuals, couples in the business space, my men's group, and other kind of things that I do too. And I write a good bit. And I also have a podcast. So my podcast is
Wow.
up there, and some of the writings that I do is there as well. So you can find it all there.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Michael. It's been an absolute delight chatting with you, and I've learned a great deal from this short, concise conversation.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I'll mention all the links mentioned. I will add all the links mentioned in the description and the show notes so listeners can click and go directly to the site. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a nice night or day for you.
That's it for today's episode of the Observe Day podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us as we explore today's observance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend who'd love to celebrate life's special days too. Don't forget to join the newsletter at observeday.com/join for more observance stories, tips, and updates. Until next time, keep finding meaning in every day.